Hi there, my name is Neil Blevins, and this lesson is called A Study in Greens, Variety in Your Colors. So looking at my artwork, especially the older stuff, you may notice I sometimes like to choose a single color and make it the predominant color of the piece. But even when I use this simple color scheme, I always try to add a little variety and variation to the color's hue and saturation in order to keep the eye interested. So making sure there's a variety of color also adds realism and mood to your piece. In fact, on larger film and game productions, some people's jobs are exclusively about picking the color palette for a particular shot or sequence or area to make sure that the overall look conveys the right feeling to the audience. So this lesson is about adding variety to your color schemes. So first off, I can't take credit for the original version of this lesson. It was originally taught to me at age 6 when I attended art classes with Canadian wildlife painter Renata Heidersdorf at the La Palette Art School. I was very lucky to get a place in one of her after-school classes, and I'd like to thank her for this invaluable lesson that I still use today. So every year in the fall, classes started out with us doing some sort of nature painting. And when I was like 7 or 8, we did the following. First, we opened the ink that was called green, and then we placed it on a piece of paper, and we observed the color, and it was something that was kind of a little bit like this color. So something, medium brightness, not quite neon, but a very generic sort of green. And then the exercise was, for the next 20 minutes, we had to mix on paper 20 different greens. So greens with yellow mixed in, greens with blue, greens with brown, dark greens, light greens, lime greens, as many different greens as we could make. So for example here, this is obviously using light additive as opposed to paint, which is subtractive, but you get the idea. This one's a little bit more of a mossy green, this one has a little more blue in it, this one is a little bit more pastel. So the purpose of the exercise was to realize that just because this ink was called green, it doesn't mean that it should be used to paint anything that we know to be green. And once we finished this exercise, we then painted a nature scene of some sort. And of course, we were expected to use lots of different greens for different trees, plants, and grass. So it might seem odd to have small children follow a rule like, no pre-made green is allowed in your painting. But in fact, it's not a rule as much as it's a method for breaking the rules. So when we're very small and we're holding our first crayon, we have total freedom. If we want to make the sky green, we can make the sky green. I mean, why not, if that's how our mind saw the sky? But soon afterwards, we start looking to our parents for answers to our questions, such as, what color is that tree? And they'll say, it's green. And what color is that grass? It's green. What color is that car? It's green. Pretty soon we have all the answers that we think that we need. All these things are now categorized in our brain. They are all green. So it's no wonder when a person starts making artwork, they immediately reach for that generic green crayon for the grass and trees. After all, they are green, this crayon says green, so I should follow the rules and I should make them green. This is the difference between painting what you see and what you know. In the book Mass by John Harris, who's a really awesome painter, he explains how he had a teacher who was convinced that it's more important to paint what you saw than what you knew. As in, forget about what you know about the object, paint the light, paint the dark, paint the color, paint the shape, and eventually the object will just take care of itself. And this is actually a really cool exercise, well worth trying sometime, and that is find something and try to paint what you actually see versus what you know the object looks like. And your observation skills will multiply in no time if you try this out. All of a sudden you'll see how the object really looks outside of what you expect it to look like. So let's take a few shots of the natural world. So here's a patch of ivy. And notice the huge variety of greens. Some of these greens are light, some are dark, some are in shadow, and this is all the same plant. And even within the same plant, you have a whole big variety of greens. Look really close here, so you can see the leaves themselves are one kind of green, and then the veins and the spots and other details are many other different types of greens. And then here's a garden scene, and there's plenty of different greens here. So I just went in Photoshop and I did a bunch of color picking of a bunch of the greens and placed them over here. So just this one shot has a huge variety in greens that's going on in the scene. So in the spirit of these ideas, let's make some grass. So right here is a picture of some simple 3D grass that I made inside of 3D Studio Max, and it has a generic green color. So it looks okay, but there's definitely something missing. And the eye sort of gets lost in the green since it's all the same bland color. So let's look at some real grass. This is a photo of real grass, and you'll notice the huge variety in greens in here. So what I did was, to add some variety to the greens, I took a bitmap of regular grass, and then I use that to color the grass that's over here. So the way it works is basically I project this image from the top on the ground plane that's growing the grass, and then everywhere a blade of grass gets grown, it looks at what the color is of this image, and then the blade of grass takes the color from wherever that is. And then immediately you get a tremendous variety to this grass that's much more interesting looking than the bland one-color grass that we have over here. Of course, depending on what you're trying to do, single-color grass may actually be the goal, such as a more cartoony-looking grass. But if you go this route, it should be a conscious choice based on a style. So if you're going to choose a single color of green, choose it because you want to, not because it didn't occur to you to do anything else. And of course, this doesn't just apply to grass or even green things. If you have a field of 100 grayish-brown rocks, make sure you have variety in those colors as well. Like this is a photograph from Yosemite. Look at all the variety here. The light grays, the darker grays. This gray has a little bit of blue in it. This gray is pushed a little bit more brown, and this is, really, really brown. So a lot of variety in here. And here's a quick example showing two of my paintings. So this is a much earlier painting that I did, and you can see it's got the really desaturated yellow to help bring you to this point of contrast, and then the rest is this blue. And there's a little bit of variety to the blue here, like there's a little more saturation down here than there is up there, but for the most part this really is kind of the same blue with maybe just a very slight saturation difference. And this is a painting that I did many years later. And this one you can see has a much larger variety of blues going on. So you have the blue that's here on the planet, and that one is a little bit desaturated and a little bit more greener blue. And then you go up to this ship here, and that's also desaturated, but you can see that the blue here is definitely more sort of a pure blue color. And then here on the planet you have a blue that's also pushing a little greener, but it's also pushing a lot more saturated. And then you go up here, and some of the blue that's happening up here is almost purple. In fact, going all the way to purple once you get up the top here. And just adding all these extra colors, all these colors are kind of in the same category. It's not like they're radically different colors. But by pushing it a little more saturated, a little less saturated, a little more green, a little more purple, and obviously the darks and lights, you just get a far more interesting color composition. So the next time you're painting a painting or texturing a 3D scene, don't pull out that single color crayon. Make sure to add variety to your colors, both in value, but also in saturation and also in hue. And the results will be more believable and visually interesting. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting, and please go to neilblevins.com in the art lessons area if you want to see more lessons like this. And feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to be notified the next time I post a video. Thank you very much.